Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us on Gulfstream today on this fabulous Wednesday. And, well, happy International Women's Day.
And right back at you. It is International Women's Day, so big shout out to all of the strong and fabulous women out there. So we're proud to be celebrating today and every day.
Absolutely. I am indeed. And we're celebrating here at Gulfstream with 11 races on tap and a very nice carryover. Acacia will actually get to some of our featured wagers today. We'll dive right into our wagering menu as we start things off in the opener with that rolling super high five. And once again, the rolling super high five takes place in races of 7 or more betting interest. So you can start off in today's opener. Race 1 also kicks off that 50-cent early pick 5, races 1 through 5. Acacia will have a ticket for that. As we move along to race 6 on today's card, that kicks off the 20-cent Rainbow 6. And we still have the carryover continues to grow here, $253,000. So really looking forward to that. I do have a single and I have a ticket show you later on today. Race 7 is the 50-cent late pick 5 as well. Final 5 races of the day. Acacia will also have a ticket for that. We are fast and firm on the turf for these 11 races with a 12:35 p.m. first post, and looking forward to it. So we'll start off with your early pick 5. I think you're going to have a lot of luck today because, of course, it's International Women's Day. I think we're going to take down some of these pick 5s and pick 6s.
Well, I hope you're right about that. We'll certainly take a stab at it, and hopefully luck will be on our side. The guy at my building actually gave all the women a rose this morning, so that was a good way to start off the day.
Nice.
So hopefully that luck will carry us through today, but we'll give you a look at my pick 5 ticket.
I got a coffee from Ron.
Well, that's a plus, yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, we're good. We're starting off in a good way. So pick 5, no single for me in the early pick 5. I do have one in the late pick 5, but trying to pare things down in here, $54 for me to start things off. 3 by 3, 2, 2, and 3.
$54. I like it. And we started off with race 1. Non-winners of 2 lifetime condition in for that claiming price of $12,500. 6 furlongs onto the main track. And I think you and I both landed on the same horse in the opener, and that is the 3 Cool Cat Jazz, but is coming back to the main track and a pretty significant drop in class. But there is still something a little bit untrustworthy about this one.
There definitely is. Actually only been on a fast main track once, and that was in April of 2016, where she did break her maiden in special weight company. Now, she is a 5-year-old mare with just 5 starts. She debuted in maiden special weight on the turf actually in 2015. It was a full year before she came back and was seen again, and then it's kind of been dabbling in turf, that one dirt start. So that is where her lone win went. I don't know if it was even, you can't even gauge off the productivity of that race because it really wasn't, but she did win at special weight company in Keeneland.
She did, and I think the big red flag here would be why they dropped her immediately right off of that lengthy layoff, and she was in for that $16,000 tag last time out, and she really didn't show up. And she used to show at least a little bit of early speed on the turf previously, so I think that would be a little bit of a concern. So I like the fact that you back yourself up with a couple horses in the first leg of the pick 5, and one of them being the 2 Liberty Road will show a stat for Marty Wolfson with this type of move, going from turf to dirt and going from routes to sprints. 31% and just shy of an even ROI, but he does well with this type of move, even finishing in the money 75% of the time.
The obvious concern with this horse is that her only win, she's just 1 for 17 on form, did come on a sealed sloppy track, so she definitely seemed to have an affinity for a track with moisture in it. Also, that was when she dropped to claiming company for the first time after facing maiden special weight company, so maybe it was a combination of both things, and she's been pretty consistent since in all of her starts against winners, except if you cross out that turf start last time out. My kind of issue with her is that she's been consistent, but she hasn't really been able to take that step forward with some really sparkling performances. 2 starts back, she did kind of, the comment is that she was bumped at the start. She actually kind of took a little left turn, I thought, and then was kind of wide early. She still finished 4th, so I use her in the exacta, but just couldn't trust her on top.
And the 5 Make Me, first off the claim for Jane Sibeli, and Jose Ortiz is in the saddle. Always a feather in the cap here, but first off the claim on the dirt with Jane Sibeli and her horses that won last out only 1 for 10 and an ROI of 28 cents. So it's really not the strongest angle for Jane Sabelli, and you have to wonder why the previous connections took that really significant drop there to the bottom, and if she can face winners and win for the first time here today. So there are a couple question marks with several of these horses in today's opener, so I think it's good to have some protection as we move right along to the second race. This starter allowance optional claiming event, 5 furlongs onto the turf, and we'll go back and show a spotlight replay of Starship Thor, who you and I actually both land on here too.
This horse has been in excellent form, actually looking for the third win in a row, and he faced some horses that we're going to see later on today in actually even tougher company, and he got the win over all of them, and that's him, the number one, comes along the rail, kind of moves back over towards the rail. Nick Juarez seeing that spot, and he was really game with horses on the outside still closing and trying to move on strongly, and he managed to pull away. And as I said, I do think it's some tougher competition than what he'll face today, though we do have some pretty solid runners in this spot, even a graded stakes winner in the likes of Dr. J Dove, but I think he's got a good outside post in here, and just thought he's the one that has recency on his side.
And he's reliable, I thought. You know, he's a horse that always shows up. Look at his past performances in the past 7 or so starts. He's just always right there. And last time out, yes, he was game on the inside, but he was also very fortunate that the rail opened up for him. So, but I do think that he's in such good form because he's very versatile. You know, he can really find a good position in the race. He can send, he can stalk, he can sit wherever he'd like to. So he is the one that we both prefer. But the 6, Dr. J Dub, I would say that he's probably the most accomplished, and he's a graded stakes winner, but sometimes he's been known to kind of just run to his competition no matter what it is.
He does. That's a good way to put it. And he's definitely got quite a bit of early speed. Now, in his past few starts, he hasn't really been getting to the front end. Now, we've seen Dubai Bob come off of that lengthy layoff and just be undefeated in his past 3 starts and going out to the front. I don't know what he'll do today facing tougher competition. Blings Express certainly has quite a bit of early speed, but that's been on the dirt, not on the turf. Whereas Dr. J Dub, he is strictly a 5 furlong on the turf sprinter. I do think he's more effective on the front end. And last time he seemed to kind of recapture some of his prior form a little bit. He did finish second, but I thought that it was one of his recently better performances.
And he, like I said, he's probably got the most back class of the field. The 2 Little Baker is stepping into, I think, tougher company than what he's faced, but he did manage to actually win or beat Allowance Optional Claiming Company actually back in the summer. And I think that race, comparable to today's field, was a little bit less in terms of competition. But he's another one that's tactical. He's coming off of a win last time out. So I thought that he could be another alternative if you're looking to beat the favorite in there. As we get to the third race, an open $16,000 claimer, 6 furlongs onto the main track. And we have a heavy, heavy favorite in the 5, Gone Jack. And look, I tried so hard to try to beat this horse because we will show a stat for Milt Wolfson, and this is just a precautionary stat. Do not single this horse in multi-race sequences. With winners last out sprinting on the dirt, connections are only 9%, negative ROI 35% in the money. So it's really not a strong angle, although he did blow the field away last time out.
He did. He won by 5, and I do think it's worth noting Pedro Monterey Jr., for what it's worth, has been aboard Icono, the 3 in here for every one of his starts, and now he's aboard Gone Jack, who he's also ridden every one of his starts. So this is the horse that he chose. He won by 5 last time out. I do certainly respect him. And at first I had him on top too, and I tried to get a little creative. Maybe this is a really wild guess, putting the 4 on top, but I did go with Love Conquers, who's dropping in class and 1-2 starts back when getting to the fast main track, and I think a level that really did suit him. And then they stepped him up to $35,000 claimers last time out, and now dropping down to this $16,000 level, which I do think is better for him. And when he broke his maiden, and even in his debut, he showed quite a bit of early speed. Now, there are some horses that are bound to be forwardly placed in this field, but I think if this horse, if he gets to the front end, that could be his best weapon. Now, I certainly wouldn't single anybody in this field, but that was the horse that I did end up landing on the class drop.
And I think Love Conquers I think he will be the speed of the speed, and that's why I was looking at him. But he's also kind of untrustworthy in that he shows speed, and he can maybe go wire to wire, or sometimes he just stops pretty abruptly. So speed is always dangerous in these types of races, though, because sometimes nobody really wants to pass each other, and the speed just holds. So the 4 Love Conquers, it's always a good thing to try to beat a 3 to 5 favorite in these types of races. But the 3 Icono, I thought this is a horse all along preferred shorter distances, and last time out they did stretch him to the mile. He was just okay. He might not be good enough, but I do like the cutback in distance, and I don't think he has to be that far off of the pace.
I don't think so either, and I thought kind of the same thing with the 158 OG. Now, just looking at stats with Jose Pinchins with maiden winners last time out on the dirt in the past 5 years, he's just 1 for 27, and that one winner was 3 rules, and this horse ran pretty well last time, but I don't think he's any 3 rules in here, so took a little bit of a cautionary move with that one.
All right, that's the third. As we get to the fourth, the non-winners of 3 lifetime claiming event, $16,000, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf course, and I did land on the 2 top of the page here, just given the really, really unfortunate trip last time out.
That was a nightmare trip last time. It was also off of a 10-month layoff for this gelding, and just had to steady right out of the gate because I thought he was kind of tossing his head. He was pretty rank early as well, and then was just tight between horses, and then in the stretch was along the rail just with no room to run too, and had to tap the brakes a couple times. So I know it was bad on paper, but I'm going to give him another try as well.
It was just bad.
It was just bad all over the place.
He checked so badly at the just before the quarter pole. He was in tight at the half-mile pole until it passed the finish line. I don't think that you can hold him accountable for his last race. But he is a horse that sometimes has been known to get into trouble, especially on the turf. You see his most recent win was on the dirt when he sat a little bit closer to the pace. So maybe this is a horse that trouble just kind of climbs on his back and stays with him. So that is the one unfortunate thing about him, but do give him a break for his last race. Whereas the 6, Mr. Magic here, he does get blinkers on for the first time. He was just beaten a little over a length last time out too, but overall the connections with turf claimers only 6%, so it's really not a strong type of condition or type of horse for these particular connections.
And at the end of the day, claiming off Todd Pletcher is never going to be an easy feat anyway, and I thought he ran fine last time out, so I do respect him in here. Also threw on the number 5, All Hundreds, who cuts back in distance a bit. Last time out did stretch out to the mile in a 16th. I thought his race 2 starts back at the mile was a bit better, so maybe this 7.5 might suit him a little bit better.
We could see that. We see this race a little bit the same way here as we get to the 5th, a maiden 12,500. Event, 1-turn mile onto the main track. And I did get creative here a little bit. We'll show a stat in just a second. But, Acacia, you did go to the 3. Give me the money, second time out for Jorge Navarro.
I did, and hopefully she will give me the money today. Now, first, after the trainer switch last time out, she did find a sloppy track, and now she gets kind of the kitchen sink thrown at her. What the good thing is that there were 2 next out winners from that race, including Rich Mommy, who stepped up in class to maiden 50,000 and won with a 60 Beyer speed figure. But now Give Me the Money gets a fast track, gets more distance, and gets the blinkers off. They added the blinkers on just one time. I guess it was kind of a failed experiment, so do like to see that they come off. What does concern me is the drop in class now that she is getting to a fast main track, but just again, wouldn't single her in here as we close out the final leg of the pick 5, but just thought she might be the most logical one.
She definitely is the most logical one. I didn't like her races even at Hawthorne, and she was obviously running against Maiden Special Weight Company, but overall they're really slow races. You look at the Beyer speed figures in comparison to the field that she faces today, and they're just okay. So I don't really know how much of a drop in class it is. She might have not liked the conditions of the track last time out. She could improve off of that, and she could maybe sit a stalking trip under Javier today. So there are a lot of things to like about her. But I did go to the 4 Fancy Chance as an alternative here for Alan Mirage. We'll show a stat here for the connections on the dirt, stretching out from sprints to routes, which is what this horse is doing. And 33%, kind of a small sample size, but they actually all run relatively well, a positive ROI of $3.05. And we also saw, I think that this really will improve with distance. She just, watching her last replay, it looks like she might travel a little bit easier with distance. And Adagio came out of that last race and has actually been in pretty decent form lately.
Our friend Adagio for sure. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that the distance will definitely help her out in here. I did have a little interest in the number 6, Spring for More, who found a sloppy track last time in her first time going a mile on the dirt, but I thought it was a pretty productive race. It was a very aggressive drop in class for her as well, and she certainly did run well. She's been consistent against tougher, so I don't know about getting the win today, but she certainly could be one to hit the board.
Well, I thought her last race was very good because Dressed in Heels, I believe, went wire to wire in there. Dressed in Heels came back and won an open $16,000 claimer
by 6 lengths.
Yeah, 64 by her speed figure. So it has been a productive race, and I thought prior to that, her races are fast enough to beat this level of competition. We also have the 7, Miss Maserati, who could be forwardly placed under Paco Lopez, maybe the speed from the outside. So there's a couple things going on there. One point I forgot to make, another thing, the 4 Fancy Chance, she actually comes out of a maiden race going against boys. So that too would be a class relief here today. But that is races 1 through 5. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the 20-cent Rainbow 6 and the late pick 5 right after this.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet. We are racing.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today, and happy International Women's Day. Hopefully that gives me a little bit of luck on my 20-cent Rainbow 6. We'll show you the sequence right now, and I did find a single today, and I actually like the single. We have stats to back up this horse in that particular race too. So singling on Lex Vegas in the 9th race. Going to be using 4 horses in the first leg though, followed by 3, by just 2. That single in race 9. 3 horses by 4 horses. So I really did think that the bookends of the sequence were probably races you wanted to have some coverage in. So $57.60 will do it for me. Once again, we have a carryover of $253,000 in there. 7.5 furlongs on the turf for this maiden claiming event. And we do have a scratch of the 2 in here, but I thought it didn't really impact the rest of the field. The 7-2 Stormy really does look like the horse to beat in here. The blinkers go on, first time gelding. There's a lot of different things going on. I try to find a stat to kind of see the confidence with this type of move here, but first time blinkers on the turf with maidens, 2 for 4. You can't really have a lot of confidence with that stat.
I saw that same stat, just kind of hunting around for anything, but do like to see him coming back as a gelding. And he got a big cutback in distance last time out, and I actually think it was a pretty solid field for the level. We did see Classic Move, who did seem to kind of mentally take a step forward and win by 4.5 that day, so it was a runaway winner. He was closing with interest, I thought, which was a pretty good sign from 2 Stormy. So I like that he's now kind of stayed at this level. He had cut back from the 9 furlongs to the 7.5 last time, and I do think this is a better spot for him. Maybe the blinkers will help him today.
And we have the 8 Osvaldo to the outside for Antonio Sano, who's technically taken a decent drop in class from a maiden $50,000 company the last time we saw him on the turf.
And that's what I was looking at. I mean, certainly in his state bred maiden special weight and maiden 50, those 2 turf races, he really didn't finish up well at all. But I'm hoping the class drop in here. Antonio Sano's other runner, the first-time starter, was a scratch in the 2, so he's left with this one in here, and just hoping that'll help him wake up a bit from the outside.
And I just threw in a first-time starter with the 5 Vassy for exacta purposes. Of course, out of Melody of Colors, who was a 6-time winner at Turf Sprint. She made over $340,000 on the turf, so there's a little bit of turf pedigree on the bottom side as well. As we turn the page to race 7, kicks off the 50-cent late pick 5. Let's see your ticket.
All right. Well, hopefully International Women's Day really does help us out, because I have the same single as you today, singling on Lex Vegas. I'm just using 2 horses to start things off with Concealed with a Kiss and Eskin Lady. Those really hard-knocking fillies and mares here in the 7th race. 3 horses in the 8th. My single will be Lex Vegas, and hopefully he will carry us through today. Then 4 by 3, $36 today.
And I like the fact that you did use 4 horses in the 10th race, because I was really considering using the 5 in the 10th race as well. But for cost purposes, I did throw that horse out. But sometimes it's always good when you have 2 horses trained by Kathleen O'Connell to use both of them, including the longer priced horse. So a good ticket there, $36. And we do start it off with this starter allowance optional claimer, 1-turn mile. The 1 Concealed with a Kiss comes out of the Lady Bird last time out. That was at 7 furlongs, and she got into a little bit of trouble coming out of the gate.
She did, and we'll go back and show this race. She was actually pretty ranked too, which is what I wanted to highlight. So she was kind of taken back a bit out of the break. So keep your eyes on the number 3 in here. We're going to go into the first turn, and she did kind of break sharply, but again, she was taken back. I think it was Luis Castillo maybe trying to get her to settle a bit, but now you see she kind of starts tossing her head. She just doesn't look comfortable, and normally she's shown so much more speed, and I think that the key with this is that she was pretty much taken out of her running style. She does not look comfortable or like a happy horse at all as they're coming out of the 7 furlong chute. And now we'll go around the turn, and she's along the rail here as we pick it up at the quarter pole. And she kind of made a move wide on the turn. She was chasing the top 2 in there, Too Clever by Half and Call Her Karma. There was absolutely no catching either of them, and she just really doesn't look like she likes to be in a chasing position. Now, she did win 2 starts back, coming from a bit off the pace, but I do think she has to go from the rail today.
And that's what I kind of saw the same way. It looked like she was really resisting the jockey's efforts to try to rate her that day, and I agree. I don't think she's really a rateable type of horse. I think she won 2 starts back, closing from off of the pace, because the pace scenario was very strange. And Too Clever by Half, she's just a filly that needs the lead. She didn't get the lead that day, so that was a very weird pace scenario, her race 2 starts back. So I would imagine stretching out to the mile with the rail post position, she's going to be the speed, and that's going to be her best weapon. But the 2 Askin Lady, she's not slow either, and she's not very slow at the 1-turn mile. Now, the question is what happened last time, but I like the fact that Safi Joseph Jr. does bring her back off of a freshening and protects her. She's obviously not dropping after that subpar performance.
She's not, so that's good to see, and she's certainly been as consistent as they come, with the exception of last time out. So maybe she did just need a little bit of a break after a pretty tough 2016 campaign. She did have a lot of races, and so she was beaten more than 11 lengths last time out. It was against some of these hard-knocking types that she'll be facing again today. So now she comes back, but I thought her race in the Glass Slipper a couple starts back was huge, and that's why I used both of these horses on my pick 5 ticket.
I really like a long shot in here. I didn't have the guts to pick her on top, but the 4 Tormento de Oro, maybe she's a horse that really just has gone bad in her last 2 starts, but look at the competition. She faced 2 other than Allowance Company last time out, Grade 3 Company in the Rampart, but prior to that, she actually won the Glass Slipper on Claiming Crown Day, so I think you have to look past her last 2 races. She's facing the right level. You just always have to wonder whether or not she is one that, or her last 2 races have maybe taken a toll on her. But at 15-1, I like her. She's a 4-time winner at the distance, 6-time winner here at Gulfstream. So a fun way to kick off the pick 5 as we get to the 8th race, the final pick 4 of the day. 7.5 furlongs on the turf, non-winners of 2 here. And we wanted to go back and show a spotlight replay of Sassy Astray. And Princess Aquila also comes out of that race.
And we'll start at the break here. Princess Aquila was definitely the speed. She'll be sent from the outside as well. Now, Sassy Stray is 9-5 on the morning line in this race. She's the number 4 in here. She's kind of along the rail and had to steady a little bit and tap the brakes and was kind of shuffled further back. And we'll see that a little bit, and that does explain kind of the trouble lines that you'll see in there. I didn't think it was tremendously huge. Maybe it upset her a little bit, and she was kind of shuffled back as others started to pass in front of her. I thought Princess Aquila ran a very big race in here, and again, she did have an easier trip being towards the front end. Now, Sassy Astray, pretty wide closing, and maybe she was just tired after being shuffled back and then having to make up a lot of ground in here. I thought it was a fine race, but certainly couldn't trust her after being the favorite that time and now being claimed and probably will be the favorite again.
I'm with you. I really didn't see a big excuse in that race. Yes, it's never a good thing to maybe lose your position going into the first turn, but she had really the whole race to recover, and she really didn't. And sometimes her wins can be a little bit infrequent. Steve Claceris will show a stat here, first off the claim on the turf too. Just 11%, a negative ROI of $1.20, 49% in the money. So it is a bit of a negative stat, obviously a negative ROI, and we both kind of don't really like her last race. So at 9-5 on the morning line, I do think that she's a vulnerable favorite. Whereas the 4 Princess Aquila, I thought she ran a huge race last time out, and I think Edgar Zayas finally figured out that she actually is a horse that prefers to be closer to the pace.
And even if you look at when she broke her maiden, she showed a lot more speed going there. So I do think that she's more effective on the front end. I took a little bit of a guess here and went with the 4 Hollywood Tomcat on top for trainer Chuck Simon. Last time out, she did win, making up ground. And I think that she conversely is one that likes to come from off of it, because 2 starts back, I think that she maybe moved a little bit too early, and that did cost her the race there. She's been working really sharply in the Palm Meadows turf course. Of course, the guess is if Princess Aquila gets alone on the front end, then that's going to be good for her. I did think Lady Lighty would show some speed from the inside too, so hopefully that'll give Hollywood Tomcat something to run at.
And I guess the concern is, how long she did go before breaking her maiden, but she's been in very good form since getting into the Chuck Simon barn, so she could just be a different horse now than what she was. We'll get to the 9th race, 5 furlongs onto the turf for this allowance optional claiming event, and the kind of lukewarm favorite on the morning line is the 5 Lex Vegas, but this is where your single and my single come into play, so let's hope we get this one home.
I hope so too, and we showed that spotlight earlier of Starship Thor. That's actually the same race that several horses in here do come out of. Lex Vegas was second in there, and this is a horse that's just been in very good form, and we know that Brian Lynch does do very well with his turf sprinters.
And we'll show you a stat to back that up, with horses finishing in the money last out in turf sprints and coming back and winning. 6 for 14, 43%, a positive ROI of $2.59, finishing in the money 79% of the time. So I think you can have faith in this horse. I was a little bit suspect of them trying the turf with him, but it looks like he's really liked the transition. He's also sometimes a quirky horse in the afternoon. He tends to get really hot, so I'm going to be kind of paying attention to that. But the 6 Ribs in the house, he's a horse that I think prefers to be on the lead, and I believe we wanted to go back to the 30th of December and show his last performance.
And we'll show this race. Now, I do think he's the main speed danger in here. He was coming from behind the pace. He did finish ahead of Partly Mocha, who went on to win 2 stakes in Houston with 92 and 90 Beyer speed figures after that. So he's coming out of a good race. Divine Warrior really just had everything his own way. It was kind of an odd move there where he did have to tap on the brakes. I don't know if that was rider error or from him. He did end up fading a little bit, but wanted to point out in this that he does prefer to be on the front end. The other main speed horse in this race, it seems, is Zeus Odin to the rail, and he's going to show some speed. I just don't think that he's at the same level of the other horses in here. So if Ribs on the House does get the jump on him and does go out to the front today with Luis Saez in the saddle, he could be dangerous.
He could be breathing down the one's neck really the entire way around there. And I agree. I think Ribs in the House is just a much better horse when he's on the lead. He doesn't look like he wants to make up too much ground. Lex Vegas isn't that slow either, so I do think that probably the best approach would be to maybe sit behind Ribs in the House and Zeus Odin to the inside. So a good replay there with the 6 Ribs in the House. Just doesn't look like he really likes to close there. The 3 Grand Sky, though, we're talking about several horses who should show speed. He is one that will be closing from off the pace. I like him better at 6 furlongs than 5. I think he needs a real pace meltdown in front of him in order to win at this distance.
He does, and that's kind of why I took a little bit of a pass on here today. He just doesn't have any early speed. He will be coming from off of it, and I do think that last time at the 5 furlongs, he did just kind of run out of real estate.
We'll get to the 10th race, the first half of the late daily double on this 11-race program, 6 furlongs on the main track, and we wanted to go back and show a spotlight replay of a whole bunch of horses coming out of the same race.
There are 4 coming out of this race, but we're going to highlight the top 2 in Who's the Lady and Easy's Mistress, because it really did end up being just a 2-horse race. Now, Who's the Lady got to the front. O'Candrita, who did actually end up passing. She was finishing a little bit further back in there, but you see Who's the Lady out in the front, Easy's Mistress closing behind her, and then the 2 of them just end up pulling away from the rest of the field. We did also see Truge come out of there and Working Carol K as well, but obviously you can see it ends up being just a 2-horse race in the front there. I did land on Who's the Lady on top, but I almost put the number 5 Rochette on top, who you were alluding to earlier. Liked both Kathleen O'Connell's in here.
And out of that last race, Easy's Mistress, I didn't like her last race, but I do think that she's capable of better. It just looked like she did not want to pass Who's the Lady towards the inside. That said, the reason why I don't really like Who's the Lady's last race is because it was a small field. She kind of drew an inside post position. She managed to get on the front end and wire the field in just okay fractions. And I don't know if she's going to get the same setup today. You'd have to think that either she has to she's probably not going to take back because she draws the rail at 6 furlongs, but she should get some pressure to the outside, and that was my concern with her. So I went with a horse that I thought could sit a really good trip, and yes, she is coming off of a layoff, the 3 to Nina, but I think the race sets up for her, and we also saw horses coming out of her last race actually do okay. Devilish Romance, recently she was 4th in a starter optional claimer, 68 by her speed figure, so horses have since improved since then, and she beat that field by 6 3/4 of a length.
She did, and it is worth noting, I took a hard look at her, that she debuted in state-bred maiden special weight types, then went to open maiden special weight and won by those open lengths. Of course, the concern being that she hasn't been seen since August. She's coming off that layoff, and she does have to back up that really explosive maiden victory with that time off. But going to the other Kathleen O'Connell runner, because talking about any sort of pace scenario that comes up on the front end, I did think that this would be a horse to be closing from off of it. Now, I remember at Gulfstream Park West when she came off of about that 5-month layoff, and she was she had won in her debut, then taken that break. She was very worked up that day, and I've kind of noticed that she's settled and she's really matured since. Now she's faced stakes companies. She's even multiple stakes placed. They've tried her on the turf. They tried going longer. It looks like she's just kind of been all over the place, and I wonder if this is just the spot that she's been crying out for all along.
It could be. She does have dirtied up form, but she could be one that this kind of race conditions, the pace scenario, just is the perfect storm for that particular horse. I was really wanting to use her on the Rainbow 6, but talking about the pace, you know, Who's the Lady's probably going to show speed from the rail. We also have the 9 Dealers Girl, who's pretty quick in here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Liberty Gibbet actually showed speed, because she's kind of a really high energy type of filly. So if she just shoots out of the gate, we could see her more forwardly placed. So an interesting race there in the 10th as we get to the nightcap. Race 11, maiden $20,000 race, 5 furlongs onto the turf. And the 6, Ellery Gal, I was like re-handicapping this race this morning and wondering why I picked her 4th. I definitely didn't want to pick her on top, but overall, I think the reason was because Bobby DeBona with turf sprinters is only 8 for 69 in general. That said, she's coming into the race with a good performance last time out.
She is, and honestly, I tried to pick against her too for that very same reason, but I just ended up looking all over the place and just not really loving anything else. The only other option that I was really looking at was the 7 Can't Catch the Racks, who's a horse that I've kind of been interested in for a while. So I did land on Ellery Gal on top. I certainly wouldn't single her in the final leg of the whatever multi-race sequence you're playing. But off of that race last time out, she does get Jose Ortiz in the saddle today. And I liked that she cut back in distance last time out because I do like her much better at the 5 furlongs versus the 7.5, which was really her only bad race.
It really was. And last time out, I thought that she did get a fantastic ride. She was in the right position, and it looked like she just wasn't good enough. But at the same time, the winner of the race, I believe she was the speed in the race, and it just looked like horses were having a very tough time closing or making up any kind of ground. So that could be the reason why Ellery Gal did not win that race. But the 10 Wildcat Wave does get to the turf for the first time. I like the fact that she showed so much speed first time out. The blinkers go on. I'd imagine she's going to show speed from the gate. The connections don't really do this type of move very often, but when they have done it, they've finished in the money quite frequently, and I think that there's a little bit of sneaky turf pedigree in here to suggest she'll be okay. So I did go with a little bit of a shot in here, but like I said, I used 4 horses in the final leg of the pick 6. I think this is a race you want to have some coverage in.
I think so too. I believe I used 3 in the final leg of the pick 5. I had alluded to the 7 Can't Catch the Racks, who does get some class relief. I really liked her 2 starts back where she did kind of hop a little bit, and then she did finish second, beaten only a length. She was claimed, moved to the barn of Phil Serpy, and they stepped her up in class last time. Now she drops back down to the maiden 20 level, and having Louis Saez in the saddle is never a bad thing.
And the 4 Hold That Kitten, I like the fact that she cuts back in distance. She doesn't look like she wants any part of 2 turns on the turf, although she is by Kitten's Joy. She's got pedigree to suggest she would like to go farther. But she cuts back today, and I thought that with experience now under her belt, last time she went this distance on the turf was first time out. So we could see an improved performance at this distance on the turf against this level of competition. So wide open race to cap off today's program in the 11th, but wanted to remind everybody again, we have that $253,000 carryover in the Rainbow Six, and that does start in the 6th race today. So get to handicapping. Let's see if you can, or if you will, single on the same horse that we do with Lex Vegas. But thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today. We will step aside, and Pete Aiello will be up next with those scratches and changes. Good luck.
We have to take care of these horses that, give us so much joy.
Being accredited